I hope you're well. In this one, I'm sharing my process, my system, if you like, for marking out a cabinet ready to join it together. As a fitted furniture guy, I made thousands of cabinets. I've done wall cabinets and base cabinets in all shapes and sizes. And you don't make thousands of anything without making a few mistakes along the way. But for the most part, the mistakes I made were early on and mostly avoided since then, down to this simple system that gives you visual clues as to where you are at every step of the process. It's going to take me much longer to explain it than it actually takes to do. So we'll go through it twice, slowly and carefully to start with, on a melamine faceboard, and then again at normal speed at the end, just to show you how quick and easy it really is once you get into the swing of it. So most carcasses, most cabinets are broadly the same. You've got a top and a base and two sides. They vary in size, of course. There'll be a back in there as well, probably. Maybe some shelves or a drawer, probably a door. But essentially, that's the basic structure, and they remain fairly consistent. I've said many times as well that I value consistency over absolute accuracy as well. If you're making a cabinet that's 600 tall and 400 wide, doesn't really matter for the most part if it comes in at 598 by 402. What matters is if you're making two of these, that they're both the same. And it matters as well that the two sides are absolute mirror images of each other, and the top and the base is a mirror image of each other as well. I've deliberately cut the ones that we're working with today about 1 millimeter out at one end, so the top fits perfectly, but the base will be a little bit off, just to show you the problems that's going to cause. So let's start with the face side and the face edge. It's not a complicated thing. The face sides are the bits that face outwards, as you might imagine on a completed cabinet like this, and the face edge are the bits that face frontwards as well. The traditional way to mark this out is just to put a little arrow on the edge and then a squiggle supposed to represent the letter F on the face. And the way I used to do it when I was just making cabinets for myself, I'd just do left and right. So right and an arrow, and maybe I'd do T for top as well. And armed with those, you've got a pretty good idea of which way around the cabinet should be. When I started doing more birch ply and veneered boards, I started putting those markings onto tape because I wanted to reduce the sanding as much as possible, and especially on melamine, because you don't really want pencil marks all over your melamine. I started putting them on tape as well. And when I started doing YouTube, tape is a better option because I could use a Sharpie to put the marks on with rather than pencil, and it just showed up better. So that's what I'm going to do now. We'll mark the face, sides and edge of this little cabinet. So this is the top and base, and this is the left and right side. So this is our left side. All I'm going to do is take a little piece of tape and I'm going to run that so that it goes right over the edge of the cabinet. So that gives us a face edge. And here I'm just going to do L and an arrow or two to show me which way around it is. And we'll do the same at the top. We'll let that tape just run over the edge. T for top, and a couple of arrows. And then we do the same on the right side. So that's our left and right sides marked with the top on each, face and edge. Then we can do the same with the top and the base. So next thing I like to do is just to mark roughly where the position of the fixings are going to be. So this is just not a precise mark that you drill to or mortise to. just a visual reference. This is the face, side and edge, so that if you're using Dominos, the mortises are going to go on the inside face, and we're going to do 3 in each one. So we're just going to mark these up roughly. 1, 2, 3. It's just to let me know that I'm expecting to cut 3 mortises in this side and in this side. We'll mark out the actual drilling or machining positions in a minute, but this just gives me a reference for what we're expecting. That's our left and right. And then I do the same for the top and the base. So these are going to go into the edges, referencing off the faces. And what I do with these is I like to put them up near the top face that we're going to be referencing from. So again, the actual position in from each edge doesn't matter. It's just a visual indicator for me. This is the same for all fixings, whether they're Dowels or Dominos, biscuits or Clamex. It just gives us a quick visual clue as to where those mortises are going to go and off which face that we're going to reference. And of course, all these markings are going to be hidden when the carcass is actually joined together. So the next thing we can do is mark the accurate position of the fixing centers. Now, if you're using a Festool Domino or a Maffel Dowel or the loose tenor jig, you can actually use the edge references from those, so you won't actually need to mark the edge mortises, but you do need to mark the center. Assuming you're not using those and you're using a dowel or a biscuit or something similar that does need a pencil mark reference, what we're going to do is just mark these in. I'm just using a sliding square. This is set to about 37 millimeters, which is about the midpoint for the domino. And we're just going to put a little pencil mark in there. Now, while it's tempting and it makes perfect sense to use the same square to reference off the back edge as well, unless you're absolutely sure that your carcass is the same depth front to back all the way down, you're going to be causing yourself some problems later on. I'll show you what I mean in a sec, but what I prefer to do is to work off the same edge, and it doesn't have to be super precise. It does have to be consistent. So we're going to work off the face edge on this one. And then we've got another one for approximately in the center as well. You don't have to use combination squares, sliding squares. You can use whatever you like. I'll just show you with this one, using this square on both sides. If we then did the same thing with, say, the base, you can see that these line up really well, but the one at the back doesn't, because you've got that discrepancy in the thickness, in the depth of the cabinet, of the carcass. So that's why it's always better to work off the face edge with a long enough rule to reach and mark the rearmost position. And then the last thing that we want to do, the final thing, is just to transfer the marks from this inside face onto the edge. And again, just to keep it a consistent visual clue, I'm just using the little hinge drilling guide for this. Use a saddle square if you've got one. But just to give you the final visual clue, you don't draw the line all the way down, you just do it in the top half so that the line on the edge connects to the face that you're referencing from. And we do this because when you machine on the inside face for a fixing, you need a reference mark on the edge, not the face, because you'll cover up the face with whichever machine you're using. That one and this one. And that's kind of all there is to it. You know exactly which sides are on show, which sides of the face. You know which edges you're referencing off. You know where your mortises are going to go, and you've got the precise locations in pencil marks to reference them off. As I said at the start, it takes longer to explain it than to do it. So let me just mark up another little cabinet as if I was jointing it with a domino or a loose tenor jig, and I'll talk you through it as I go. So this is our carcass. We've got two sides on the top and the base. I've cut these very carefully, and I know that they're precise front to back. I'll be using the domino for this, so I can reference off the edge pins, and I'll be using tight setting for the edges up here and the middle setting in the faces, so it's not really a concern anyway. So all we're going to do, we've got the top, we'll mark up front, side and edge. We've got the base the same. We're going to have 1, 2, 3 in here, 1, 2, 3 in there, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is left and top, right and top. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 over here. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. This is the face. Because I'm using the domino, I can work off the edges, so I only need a center mark on these. 1, 2. Working off that face edge. 1 and 2. I'll take these down. There. And there. Sides marked up. Top. We just need to do two middle ones. Spin it over again. Two middle ones. And that is pretty much all there is to it. You can take that, do the machining, get your mortises cut, and you're basically in business. That's all I've done for the vast majority of cabinets that I've made over the last 10 or 15 years. It's one of the easiest ways to avoid that sinking feeling when it comes to the glue up when you've got a domino or a dowel that isn't quite going to fit. I'll call this one done for this week though. Thanks so much for taking a look. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and while you're there, maybe hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, take care.